It's a very beautiful thing to know that we are watched over. Is it not? That we are watched over. That someone has their eyes on us. Someone loves us enough to watch over us. Every breath, every hair, every smile, every tear, every concern, every wish, every hope. All the spiritual paths talk about our greatest fear, and really the source of all of our fear is that we're not connected, that we won't feel that connection. But that's a perceived fear. We perceive it sometimes. We may feel it sometimes. But it's not true. Just like his eye is on the sparrow. And there's a passage in the Bible that talks about, sparrows were sort of a dime a dozen. You could get, in the money of that day, you could buy 2 for a coin, but you could get 5 for 2 coins. Because what's the extra one? Thrown in. And yet God keeps his eye on the sparrow. Just like us. Meister Eckhart said, he's a 13th century Christian mystic, and he said, "The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me." The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me. Isn't it a beautiful thing to know that perhaps all the parts of us that we may feel aren't quite perfect are transformed with the eye that watches us. With the eye that holds us and nurtures us and is us. I have to tell you, this hymn came out of such an experience. Want to hear the story? This is written by Sevilla Martin. Early in the spring of 1905, my husband and I were in Elmira, New York. We contracted a deep friendship for a couple by the name of Mr. and Mrs. Doolittle, true saints of God. Mrs. Doolittle had been bedridden for nearly 20 years. Her husband was an incurable cripple who had to propel himself to and from his business in a wheelchair. Despite their afflictions, they lived happy lives, bringing inspiration and comfort to all those who knew them. One day, while we were visiting with the Doolittles, my husband commented on their bright hopefulness and asked them for the secret of it. And Mrs. Doolittle replied simply, "His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me." I can't say that without crying. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. This is somebody who's been bedridden for 20 years. He watches me. The beauty of this simple expression of boundless faith gripped our hearts and fired the imagination of my husband and me. The hymn, "His Eye is on the Sparrow," was the outcome of that experience. So our looking at God has little to do with our life circumstances. Our looking at God has little to do with what is happening in our lives. All that is required, as Mrs. Doolittle taught, was an unconditional love and faith. Did Mrs. Doolittle have a condition to love God? What the hell am I doing in this bed for 20 years? What's up with that? What did I do to deserve that? Why me? Does she need her life conditions changed to love God? So we burn with love and fire and devotion, not in spite of our life circumstances, but because of them. They carve places deep in our soul that teach us to love more deeply. To see the light through the forest when clouds block the way. No conditions. May not get it, may not understand, may not be able to figure it out, may not know why, may not have the reasons. So what? All I want is the one who watches. Me. So in the same eye that's looking at you, and you're looking at that eye, the circle of love and creation, and joy and beauty and wonder is complete. What else is there to know? What else is there to need? What else is important? Done! So in those moments when we know that the same eye that is looking at us is the eye that we are looking toward, and we're one and the same, we sing because we are happy, and we sing because we are free. He has his eye on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I know he watches.